Hi, and welcome to Rosebread Homestead, where today we're going to be talking about refrigerators, and this certainly does go to food security. So here's the scoop. We have lived in this house for 12 years, and over the 12-year period we have had one appliance after another fail because they were the original appliances. So we have replaced everything except our refrigerator. And Jim and I are quite frugal, and we like for things to last for a long time, but we recognize that this refrigerator is pretty much on its last legs, and since we're sort of redoing the kitchen anyway, and because we found a fantastic buy on Black Friday, 30% off on a great fridge that fits right here in this slot. I mean, I wanted to knock out walls and put in a great big Sub-Zero side by side and do a bunch of fancy things, but we're not going to do that. We're going to replace our refrigerator with one exactly this size, except it's going to be with French doors. It's on order. We won't have it for a few weeks, but that's okay. Our cabinet makers are 4 months out. It'll be March or April before we get everything in place, although I think our refrigerator will come sooner than that. In any case, there is nothing like a little bit of personal relevance for us to dig into information, and that is exactly what I have done on refrigerators. Now, because I'm retiring in pretty much 3 weeks, I have made some retirement resolutions, and one of them is to do a better job keeping up with our refrigerator. Over the decades that I have had to work full-time and that Jim has worked full-time, there just wasn't time to do everything, and our refrigerator kind of languished. I mean, we sometimes found things that could pretty much walk away on their own if we released them, and I kept losing produce down in the crisper drawers because the crisper drawers were very narrow, and I piled things on top of each other, and they got forgotten because they weren't right there in view. So I've read a number of articles and watched some other YouTube videos, and I've learned an awful lot about the best way, the safest way to preserve food by loading it in a specific way in a refrigerator. Pretty much all of the articles were in agreement, so I'm going to give you what those articles say without opening up my refrigerator, because I have done things a little bit unorthodox in loading my refrigerator, and I will tell you the reason why. And you know me, I'm very scientific, so I collected some data to help inform where I would put my food. So pretty much a refrigerator is a box with cold air. Where does the cold air come from? If you have a side-by-side, or if you have a top freezer and then the refrigerator below it, the cold air comes from your freezer. And one of the first things that you need to do is to locate the vents in your refrigerator that blow in from the freezer side. So if you have a freezer on the top, most likely it's going to be on the back wall, and it will drop cold air into the freezer, into the refrigerator. Now, with our side-by-side here, I'm going to show you one vent when we get inside, but the vents are along this center wall. And so the air is forced from the freezer into the refrigerator, where that cold air then drops. As you know, the physics of air movement is that cold air is more dense, and so it's going to sink. Warm air rises. And we all know this from running furnaces or fireplaces in our homes. We know that hot air rises, cold air sinks. And that same principle is important to keep in mind inside our refrigerators. Most of you are going to have refrigerators that are much newer than mine, and where you can control certain zones within the refrigerator. I can't do that in mine, it's too old. When I collected the data and made the decisions, I based it on the data that I was collecting. So here is what the articles say that you should load a refrigerator that most likely is newer than ours. So on the refrigerator door, and I'm not going to open mine yet, on the refrigerator door, all the articles said that is the warmest place in the refrigerator. So there are some things that you should not store there. Milk is one of the things that we should never store on the refrigerator door, because it is the warmest spot, and therefore your milk is going to spoil sooner. When I was raising my family of 6 children, it really didn't matter where I put the milk in the fridge. We went through it so fast, it didn't matter. So nothing ever expired, nothing ever spoiled. But now with just Jim and me, we have to watch things like that, and we don't drink much milk anymore. You won't see any milk when I open the fridge. So just be aware that that's what happens on the door. Things that are great to keep on the door are things like butter and condiments, soda and water, things that are not as susceptible to warmer temperatures. What are the temperatures that we should be looking for inside the refrigerator? Below 40, between 40 and freezing. So between 28 or 29, even though 32 degrees is freezing, things can withstand about 29 degrees before they start to freeze. So anything above 40 promotes microorganism growth. So we want to keep it below 40. 40 or below is where we want it. So on the door, butter, condiments, soda, water, that kind of thing. On the upper shelf, this is a good place because remember, cold air is falling. So supposedly upper shelves may be a little bit warmer. And on those upper shelves, we can do jams and jellies and leftovers, yogurt, things like that. Yogurt is a fermented food, so it can be in a little bit warmer spot than just fresh dairy can. So that then are the middle and lower shelves. The middle and lower shelves are the coldest part of your refrigerator because cold air is going to be dropping. And so there is where you should store your milk, meat, fish, poultry. And if you can get it to about 29 degrees, that's about ideal. And if you can't, just keep it below 40. On those shelves, we need to be very careful about cross-contamination. So when we put meat in, leave it in the original packaging. If you are thawing meat, put it on a plate with a paper towel under it so those juices do not escape and run wild in your refrigerator. That is a good way to cross-contaminate, which we do not want. The deli drawers, we keep cheese, bacon, deli meat, that kind of thing. And then on the very bottom are the crispers. The crisper drawers are where we keep the fruits and the vegetables, and it's important to separate those two. Fruits in one side or in one drawer, and vegetables on the other side or in another drawer. Fruits produce a gas that is detrimental to the ripening and spoilage of other fruits and vegetables, so we should keep them separate. Then if we have the option of low humidity versus high humidity in two different drawers, then in the low humidity, that's where we want our fruits and our peppers and our summer squash. The high humidity is where we want our veggies, things like lettuce, celery, leafy greens, green onions, and that sort of thing. Then things that do not belong in a refrigerator ever, never, never: bananas, garlic, potatoes, onions, except for green onions. Green onions are okay, but I'm talking about the bulb onions. And tomatoes. I never knew you weren't supposed to keep tomatoes in a refrigerator. I learned that from a produce person in a supermarket years ago. And I was really shocked because I grew up, Mother always kept tomatoes in the refrigerator. But don't put tomatoes in your refrigerator, or citrus either. So let me tell you then what I did with my refrigerator. Jim and I have an assortment of thermometers. These are food thermometers. We have learned that with off-grid cooking and doing many of the things that we're going to be doing, we need to be very, very cautious of food safety and keeping food at the proper temperatures. So the danger zone is between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. We want food that we're serving higher than 140, and we want to keep cold food lower than 40 degrees. Between 40 and 140 Fahrenheit, this is the danger zone that promotes bacterial, detrimental microorganism growth. So we don't want to leave food out on the countertops that is in that zone for longer than an hour or two at the very most, and then either heat it or refrigerate it or freeze it. But these thermometers, especially these models, untangle it here, were the perfect tool for me to collect data on temperature inside our refrigerator. So I put 3 of these in our refrigerator, and we took the temperature for 36 hours. One probe went on the door, in one of the trays on the door. A second probe went in the middle part of the refrigerator, not on the door, but on the shelves. And then a third one went down in the produce drawers, in the crispers. And I monitored temperatures for 36 hours, and they did not budge. I mean, we could open the refrigerator, do whatever we needed, close the door. The temperature didn't budge. So I was actually kind of impressed by that. I imagined that every time you opened the door, the cold air would just drop right out, but it didn't. It dropped straight down, and then some of it would come out. But the temperatures never varied for 36 hours. So what were they? Well, the door was 37 degrees constantly. Everything else was 34 degrees. The drawer, the deli drawer, the shelf, everything was 34 degrees. So those temperatures were perfectly fine for storing food. And what it did was it gave me a lot of latitude where I could put food. I didn't necessarily have to conform to all of the articles by putting certain things here, there are certain things here, and certain things here. I could put them anywhere I wanted. So I am experimenting, and I'm going to show you what I did. So come on around and let's open up this refrigerator. So I would encourage you to collect a little bit of data on your own refrigerator. You don't need to get 4 or 5 or 3 thermometers. Just get a single thermometer and then put it in a given place and check it over the course of several days, and that will tell you where the warm spots are and where the cold spots are. And then that gives you much greater freedom to place the food knowing that meat, eggs, milk need to be cold, and pretty much everything else can be scattered wherever you want it. And then produce in the crisper drawers if necessary, especially if you have humidity control there. So here comes the big reveal. Here is the inside of my refrigerator. The first thing that I'm going to do is invite Jim over so that you can see the vent that brings the air from the freezer over into the refrigerator. So he's going to come around here and take an angle shot. So you can see it up in the far left corner. It's about this wide and it's louvered, but I can't control the louvers. And so air comes in there, and I felt it last night. It was blowing cold air. So there is a second vent that is about 6 inches long that is halfway down this wall on this very same side that brings in cold air. Now yours may be set up very different. Your vents may be down the back and it might look like a spine of louvers. It can be on either side, but you'll be able to tell where that cold air is coming in. And be sure that you keep things away from those openings because you want that air to free flow. So don't block it with a carton of milk or something. So the top is the butter holder, and it is fine to have your butter on the door. I have lard and Philadelphia cream cheese, and this is a roll of my fancy butter right here, and so that is fine here. Now, produce does not need to be chilled all the way down to the low temperatures inside a refrigerator. And so because I always lose my produce, I want it right here almost at eye level. And so I have it loosely wrapped in plastic bags or original containers. There's some cranberries. Here's some celery, very loose, so that any gas that is produced will stay in the bag and it won't escape and affect other things. Here's carrots in an original package. Here are some green peppers, some green beans. And I can't tell you how wonderful this works. I can open up the refrigerator and immediately see my produce and then pull out some fresh things for a meal, and it works so much better for me than having it down in those crispers. I have one shelf of condiments here. I could put more on the bottom, but I have my condiments now, most of them down here in this drawer and the drawer underneath that I pulled off of these shelves. And they're fine there. Then, from the top, here's my sourdough starter up here where it may be warmer, although my cold air comes in here, and there's no difference in temperature in my whole refrigerator. I have some soft drinks. Here are a few leftovers. Here's cranberry sauce and some tahini. Here I have a lineup of specialty butters, some more drinks and eggs. Keep eggs in the original cartons. Do not store eggs on your door. Keep them in the original cartons and in the colder part of the refrigerator. More drinks here. Here is some dairy right here, cottage cheese and sour cream. And then here's some things like this is, these are pickled olives, and I have some corn here, some salsa, and then my great big giant mayo clear in the back. This shelf is for leftovers. Jim did a big batch of chops last night. Notice how tightly they are wrapped, so no juice escapes. This is some chorizo that we're going to be putting with scrambled eggs in a couple of days. This is my deli drawer. It has cheese, mostly just cheese. This has some deli meat right here. More leftovers would go right here. We watch our leftovers very carefully. And so that pretty much is my refrigerator. Now we have a second refrigerator out in the garage that does hold other things. When we bring meat in, large packages of meat, it pretty much goes out there. But we could bring it in here. We could put it in here if necessary. So let's talk about a couple of other things. A lot of keeping food safe in a refrigerator is just following common sense of the rules that we already know. Cross-contamination can occur in a refrigerator, so we have to be very mindful of that. If you are like me, I have cleaned up my share of meat juice leakages in the refrigerator that have leaked across glass shelves and gotten into the drawer below, and I've had to remove some of the food because of cross-contamination. So let's be preventive and think carefully when we do things so that we can save ourselves some time and effort and keep food really safe. Keeping foods in the original packages is the best, every article recommended that, is the best choice until we are ready to use it. And don't wash produce ahead of time. Washing produce, now I would differ with that because I take my lettuce, when I'm ready to use it, I take it out of the refrigerator, pop the core out, take the outer leaves off, rinse it, and then I keep it in plastic. But for the most part, we do not want to rinse off produce because that is going to give bacteria a much more pleasant place to grow and contaminate the food. For your carrots and your squash and your celery and those kinds of things, break off or take out what you're going to use for a meal and then wash and prepare it at that point in time, and your produce will last a lot longer. Now, in terms of, I don't keep apples in the refrigerator. I know that some people do, but apples are notorious for giving off, oh my gosh, I forgot the name of the gas that they give off. But that gas that apples give off is detrimental to other produce, and so I keep my apples just in a box on the shelf, on the kitchen counter, just right as it comes from Costco. I take an apple a day to lunch, and we want to keep apples separate from bananas, for instance. And bananas don't go in the refrigerator, but keep them separate someplace else in your kitchen. Keep potatoes away from onions, same kind of thing. The gases, we don't want those to mix. And so knowing just these little hints about keeping foods safe, using your refrigerator, what to use your refrigerator for and what to not put in your refrigerator, will help all of us be more frugal about preserving food and keeping food safe. So I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope, for my sake, that I can pay close attention to my retirement resolution and do a better job of keeping my refrigerator. When we get our new refrigerator, I'll bring you back and give you a little tour of that to see if I've changed my mind. Take data. Take the temperature of your refrigerator because it may offer you more freedom just like it did me. And then I will keep you updated on how I'm liking the produce on the shelves of the door. So we have a lot of things to look forward to. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you at our very next video.